All right, I just want to make this clear right off the bat. Personally, I've never really been a huge fan of Ethan Klein, even way back in the day, because people like to say, oh, he used to be great, but these days, ooh. Don't get me wrong, I've never really been his biggest hater, but I've certainly never been a fan. Obviously, he used to make much higher quality videos in the past, and he's had moments here or there where he's even earned some of my respect, but even back then, I always found him a little off-putting. There was something always just off about him to me. From day one, he's always just had this sort of like self-righteous undertone to everything that he says on the internet. Like, he gets up on his high horse for the moral high ground so many times, despite the fact that he's rolled around in the mud and gotten his hands dirty almost as much as everyone he used to criticize even back in the day. Which is fine. I'm all for entertaining the viewer and creators taking shots at each other, but it's the fact that he's just always thought he was better than all of the people he was criticizing that really just hasn't ever sat well with me. Like, even back in the day when everybody loved him, people forget about this, but it's like, he snaked Pyrocynical back in the day, he snaked Leafy back in the day, and don't get me wrong, Leafy's not the most stand-up citizen either, but he still betrayed him. And even just a few years ago, he snaked Trisha Paytas, again, a controversial figure, but my whole point here is Ethan is never any much better than all of these people, despite pretending to be. And I don't know if it's accurate to say that he snaked Hassan, because Hassan certainly did him the dirtiest out of everyone I just listed, but he got in bed with Hassan willingly for his own personal gain, and then tried to play stupid about it on the back end of all this, like, oh, you know, I started a podcast with him, but I didn't know he was a radical. I didn't know that he was this crazy about what he believes. It's like, shut the fuck up, Ethan. Everybody knows what Hassan is up to. Overall, if you look back at Ethan Klein's career, he has a consistent track record of just being a manipulative opportunist who's always trying to position themselves into the most advantageous position he could be in, no matter if it ever hurts people who trusted him along the way. And that right there is the most poignant and thought-provoking criticism of H3 you are going to hear for the rest of this video, because this video is about the recent content cop, and it was absolutely pathetic. There are plenty of things to criticize Ethan Klein for. Just ask Gokunaru, you know, the guy who made the only good content cop about Ethan. Idubbbz didn't touch on any of those things. And even worse, he wasn't very entertaining about it either. But really quick, we need to catch up on some lore for a minute. I've been following Idubbbz very closely for the past couple years. I have sat through hours of his god-awful podcast with his wife Anissa, a podcast that gets less views than my channel. And I was only able to do it because I was watching Kino Casino laugh at them constantly. But I have witnessed all of the buildup leading up to this point. And this situation is so much worse when you understand the years of context that have built up to this moment. I'm gonna speed run through a lot of this because there's plenty of great videos out there that have chronicled this whole arc in immense detail. But way back in 2016, Idubbbz had a very popular series called Content Cop, where he would ruthlessly criticize bad actors on YouTube, and do so with a lot of witty humor and entertaining skits intertwined in the videos. These videos would get anywhere from 20 million to upwards of 50 million views apiece. He was the king of critical commentary. Meanwhile, around this time, his would-be wife, Anissa Joma, was a shameless titty streamer over on Twitch back in the day. See, back then, the popular thing on Twitch was to just be a mildly attractive woman and show as much cleavage as you possibly can. Maybe they would play a video game in the background if they really were putting in the effort, but it was about as bottom of the barrel as content gets. And Anissa was desperate for more clout and attention being drawn her way. She absolutely craves external validation and has always wanted to be accepted amongst some of like the bigger creators out there on the internet. In fact, she literally wanted to fuck Leafy is Here way back then, except when that large YouTube creator was uninterested in her, she set her sight on Idubbbz. And apparently Idubbbz had never seen a vagina in person before Anissa, because as soon as she came into his life, he just completely bent over backwards for her and has done everything he can to please her at the cost of his own sanity and ultimately his own career. Everyone knows it. Some people are more mean about it than others. I actually have a tad bit of sympathy for Ian just because I've seen this before so many times. Everyone always has that one friend who never really got many girls when they were younger, and the minute they get even just a little taste of it once they're older, they don't have that intuition built up to properly understand and be self-aware when they start losing themselves in another person. That's a about where my sympathy ends for him, because the rest is all self-inflicted. He's asked for this. But anyways, because his wife Anissa has been desperately seeking validation from the internet for most of her adult life, she loved the fact that Idubbbz was one of the biggest YouTubers out there. She hated the fact that he had gotten his popularity from being a more edgy and provocative character on the internet. And because she had her sights set on ingratiating herself into this community of streamers who are just absolutely popping at the time on Twitch, I think the name is gay as fuck, but they kind of call themselves the poggers community. These people have always been completely against the kind of behavior that Idubbbz exhibited in his first few years on the platform. So super long story short, she manipulated her husband Ian into basically looking back on his previous work and used the power she had over him to foster this kind of like self-hatred that hasn't left Idubbbz really since like the 2020-ish. Ian would go on to drop an incredibly controversial video where he more or less just called out the majority of his viewer base for being garbage human beings, I guess, because they used to enjoy his work, and his work isn't super brand safe these days. So he betrayed his audience to keep his closeness with Anissa, pissed all of them off, made it very clear to the world that he was going to be totally cucked by his wife for the rest of his life. And people have had an issue with him ever since and see him as largely fake at best and a spineless, hypocritical coward at worst. And for years, he's been too scared to make a content cop again and has lost so much confidence in himself. He hasn't really been able to upload very much at all in the past few years. So these days, you can only really find him posting on him and his wife's god-awful podcast that I mentioned earlier, which is actually titled "She Ruined My Career." That's not a joke. That's what they call the podcast. You know, it's an attempt to try to embrace all of the hate that's come their way. But if you actually watch it, you'll notice that they're still extremely insecure about all of it. And they're completely out of touch with why Idubbbz's audience would even have a problem with him in the first place. They have no clue what they did to piss so many people off, even though it's so obvious. And if you ever do tune into this podcast, I highly recommend you just watch Kino Casino's collection of reactions to the podcast, because they're the only ones that can make it bearable. And basically for an hour at a time, Anissa just totally castrates her husband Ian and points out all of his flaws for the whole world to see. And he just has to sit there and take it. It's like, it's a tough watch, but it's the kind of thing you also can't look away from. And that brings us to today, where a couple months ago, Ian's old friend from back in the day, Ethan Klein, was catching a lot of heat from his feud with Hassan Piker that's been going on ever since their podcast fell apart. And in the middle of this crazy feud, one of Hassan's friends, Denims, was criticizing Ethan in bad faith and was spreading sort of like rumors going around that his house was a super unsanitary, unsafe environment for children, that his kid got sick with some weird parasite from eating dog shit in the house. And I wouldn't say she made up these rumors, but she certainly spread them very irresponsibly on her stream. And this led to some of her viewers actually unironically calling CPS on the Kleins, and Ethan had to have himself and his children investigated by CPS officers based off of completely false allegations that Ethan and Hila were incompetent to take care of their kids. None of this was mentioned in the Content Cop episode, by the way, even though this incident was more or less the catalyst that set all of this into motion. And so Ethan came out and just asked Idubbbz and Anissa to be like, hey, you know, we've been to H3's house before. We've been around the Kleins quite a bit. I don't know if their kid was running around eating dog shit or if it's an unsafe place for them to be. But when we were there, everything was clean. They seemed like good parents and their children seemed very happy. That's all Ian and Anissa had to do. Just like lightly back up their friend for a bit while he's catching so much heat. But this was, of course, a massive conflict of interest because Anissa really wants to fuck Hassan Piker. Not like literally, but kinda, you know. At the very least, Anissa wants to be on their level. She wants to be ingratiated into their community for her own personal benefit. And everyone knows Hassan Piker is a whiny baby who can't handle even just the lightest of pushback. So this was just never going to happen. Now, they could have said that they wanted to just simply stay out of this and leave it at that. And they tried to say that. Ethan, in response, said that he felt betrayed. So that really pissed off Idubbbz and Anissa. And they went on to their podcast to just air out all of this dirty laundry and all of these grievances grievances now that they suddenly have with Ethan. They kept claiming that they wanted to just stay out of all this, but if you watch the whole podcast, they're just throwing Ethan under the bus the entire time and kissing up to Hassan, basically, indirectly, at the very least. It's like the South Park skit with, like, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, you know? Oh, we just want privacy. Oh, we just want to be left alone. All this, blah, 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 blah. Well, meanwhile, they're holding press conferences and putting themselves out there so much, yada, yada. You get the idea here. Like, they tried to say that they were staying out of it while indirectly totally supporting Hassan and giving him no pushback whatsoever, which is really slimy. So because the internet and their own viewers were calling out Ian and Anissa for this, that's what sparked this whole recent hatred for H3 that led to this god-awful content cop that came out the other day. Ethan Klein asked for a very, very small favor from his friend. Idubbbz left him high and dry. Ethan felt betrayed. Idubbbz' audience felt betrayed because they have a lot of crossover with H3's audience. Idubbbz and Anissa get pissed off by their audience. Anissa wants to kiss up to Hassan and feels like she has a righteous opportunity to do so. And so what does Ian do? He teams up with his friend's bully.
Wake up, Ethan. Wake up, Ethan. Ethan, wake up.
Wakey, wakey, Ethan. Wake up, Ethan. Wake up. Time to be awake, Ethan.
I know, it's cringe. It's really difficult to watch.
Wake up, Ethan.
This is no longer a dream. This is a nightmare. Wake up.
Ethan, the dumb bitch is telling you to wake up.
Wake up, Ethan. Wake up. Wake up, Ethan.
Ethan, wake up.
He literally collected all of the Infinity Stones of Ethan Klein haters. Every one of the people who just introduced themselves are orbiters of Hassan Piker. Orbiter meaning Hassan is the large breakout channel amongst all of them at the center, and they all float around his relevance on the internet to stay relevant themselves. All of these people, by the way, Denims, Frogan, and the black guy, they're all incredibly controversial. I don't have any time to get into them right now. This video is already going to be long enough. But let's just say the Ian from just 5 years ago, you know, before he was totally cucked, old Ian would have made a content cop episode about every single one of these people. Just the fact that he has teamed up with them tells you everything you need to know about the current day Idubbbz.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, Ethan.
I'm not gonna do a react content yet, chat.
I know, it's so bad. I know.
Ethan.
Wake up, Ethan.
But all of the cringe aside, let's just remember that every single one of these people has been guilty of harassing the fuck out of Ethan and Hila these past few months, inciting all of this hatred towards H3 within their fan bases, to the point where CPS is knocking on the Klein's doors, and when this upsets Ethan, they do this. They get together to gang up on him and try to bully him some more together all at once. How the fuck are these people supposed to have the moral high ground? The same moral high ground that they impose on their viewers every single fucking day. All of these people are the kind of people who go around telling everyone else that they're better than them because of their superior political beliefs. And they're all just certifiable, slimy pieces of fucking shit. Like, I was very critical of H3 at the start of this video. I stand by all of that. Don't really like the guy very much. But honestly, everything they've been doing to him lately, it's been too much. He doesn't deserve this. He certainly dug himself into this hole. Ethan got himself in this mess. But I don't know how these fucking losers can go around every single day telling other people how to live their lives. And this is the kind of shit that they engage in and justify to each other. Idubbbz and Ethan were friends for years. When Ian was getting a bunch of shit a few years ago, Ethan actually stood up for him. Publicly, he stood by Idubbbz. And the minute that Ethan asks Ian for just the slightest, tiniest of favors, Idubbbz fucking teams up with his bullies. Unfucking believable. Like, just absolute garbage piece of shit friend.
All right.
Get ready, because starting now, the rest of the entire video is just gonna be Ian sitting here on this fucking stool and bitching about Ethan. Bitching about, like, super petty personal beef that they easily could have settled privately behind closed doors if they were just willing to speak to each other.
I didn't plan on making a content cop on H3. It sounds very stupid even saying that. H3 content cop, Idubbbz. Ethan Klein's out of control. And then you should do a content cop on Hassan Piker. Content cop on Sargon of Akkad. If I would imagine this in 2016, I would have been like, oh yeah, if I ever do that, it's gotta be because I lose the plot.
I know every single person who has talked about this video has interjected at this exact moment to remind Ethan, yes, you in fact have lost the plot, but I'm doing it anyway because it just has to be said. Everybody fucking knows it. You are lost, Ian. You have been for years, and it's actually sad.
Well, it turns out it's not me losing the plot, it's Ethan. He's the one who fucking attacked first.
My good fucking friends who I stood by after all these fucking years can't find a spine to speak up.
So go fuck yourself.
I agree.
This is so slimy of Idubbbz. Throughout this entire video, he tries to pretend like he's the bigger person who's seeing the bigger picture and has the real empathy for everyone involved. He's playing dumb and being passive aggressive. Idubbbz turning down Ethan the way that he did could be seen as a slight if you're in Ethan's shoes. Ethan has a valid reason to be frustrated with Idubbbz. Just because you pretend that you don't want to be involved and then you actually get involved and escalate it even further, that doesn't make you innocent, and none of that justifies escalating things with a whole ass video about Ethan.
Ethan was obviously caught in this tricky situation where he is extremely sympathetic to the Israeli cause and what's happening to them. His wife's Israeli, she served in the IDF. He obviously likes the state of Israel. On the other hand, he's just got done capturing a massive progressive audience who are very politically savvy. They follow Hassan. Hassan is strictly a political streamer, so this is something they're very keyed into. So when they see Ethan say things that are just like not accurate and it's just propaganda, they're gonna call it out.
Anyways, though, so the rest of the video is basically just Idubbbz sitting here and calling out Ethan for his stance on Israel-Palestine, calling out Ethan for being critical of Hassan Piker, and bitching about their own personal drama that recently happened with Ethan asking Ian to stand up for him. That's it. That's the whole video, and it's fucking boring. Obviously, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a central focal point of the video. I just want to make it clear right now, this is the single political issue I am most uninformed about, most uneducated in. I have absolutely no effing clue what I'm talking about when it comes to this conflict. I have no dog in that race, and I think my thoughts on it are meaningless. I'm not saying I don't care totally, because tragedy is tragedy, and there's certainly been plenty of it on both sides of this conflict from what I have heard, but I'm not pro either, and I'm not against either exactly. Like, yeah, I live a privileged life in a first world country, very grateful for it. This is something that I'm grateful that it doesn't have to be on the forefront of my mind. So I am not making this video for some backdoor workaround way to like push some sort of belief or agenda that I personally have or criticize them for theirs. I'm making this video because Ian's content cop was just straight up fucking dog shit. It was not entertaining. It was very petty and yet still dragged on longer than almost any content cop that's ever been uploaded. There were no skits. There were very few jokes. And like, I should be one of the ideal viewers of this video. I've never really liked Ethan Klein to begin with. I have no stake in the Israel-Palestine conflict. If Idubbbz had poignant and funny criticisms to levy at H3, I should be able to enjoy this video. None of it is there because Ian has no fucking clue who he is anymore. He's just floating in the wind along with whatever it is his wife wants and the people around him who can help him out want. He doesn't actually believe anything he says because he's wildly uninformed about all of this shit, and that's not up for debate. I have watched hours of She Ruined My Career podcast. Trust me, I've heard all of Ian's takes. He has no fucking clue what he's talking about, and he's just going along with what everyone else around him thinks. That doesn't really make for an entertaining video, and it's sad that this shell of a man is stepping up to the plate to try to hit another dinger out of the park, and he just can't fucking do it anymore. It's sad. He's lost his fastball. He stands for absolutely nothing and deflects all criticism of himself onto other people. This is exactly why everyone calls Anissa his Yoko Ono. Because ever since Anissa has taken over his life, he's never thought for himself. He's doing Hassan's dirty work for him, for Anissa's gain. It's painfully obvious. I was never even personally the biggest fan of Content Cop back in the day either. I enjoyed most of them, but Idubbbz was never up on this pedestal for me. And yet he used to make really interesting and thought-provoking arguments about other creators while mixing in his his own humor and so much of his creativity throughout the videos. And he used to have a backbone. This is just a big fat nothing burger. I feel no need to react to the rest of this video, even though I've seen it multiple times over. It's just fucking nothing. And he snaked his longtime friend Ethan for no good reason at all. When Idubbbz made Content Cop back in the day, the central theme of each of the videos would be, this is a morally repugnant person who happens to also make shitty internet content. They should be canceled. They should be done with, over with. You should want nothing to do with them. He was known as a career destroyer back in the day. Even though that wasn't ever really entirely true, it was the whole point of a Content Cop video. This all just basically boils down to, I don't agree with your political opinions, and I was personally very frustrated dealing with our friendship these past few months, and that's why I'm burning this bridge. That's the whole video, and it's the longest Content Cop by far. And it's one thing if you want to criticize his political takes. I mean, H3 puts them out there. It's free for people to criticize. But the fact is, Idubbbz knows very little about what he's talking about, and that makes it very difficult for him to actually hit H3 with any like serious, hard-hitting kind of criticisms. He's just parroting things all these other streamers told him. And maybe they are the correct opinions or not. I don't know. I don't have a dog in the fight, like I said. But there's no chance Ian is going to be the one to make an entertaining, cutting video about it if he knows so little and just acts like a soulless husk for Hassan and Frogan and all of them to just channel their hatred into. The last thing we're going to touch on, though, that really fucking bugged me happened at the very end of the video.
I think something that's very important to me in bringing back Content Cop is to be fair. I think that was something that was not illustrated in previous Content Cops that I think should have been, and probably wouldn't have left me with so much regret. Ethan deserves all of the criticism that he's getting. I think it's very valid. But I also think, at the end of the day, we should acknowledge that he's human, because he is human. And he is in a situation that's making him extremely scared, paranoid, defensive, sensitive, and I'm sure other features and feelings. In the spirit of Kirk saying that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug, I have challenged some of his most powerful haters to put down the haterade and just say something nice and charitable about him, because I think he deserves it.
All of these people are slimy fucking cowards. They just spent the past hour absolutely ruthlessly shitting on H3 over very petty things, and they have been personally harassing him for months.
I just wanted to say that I respect that you are genuinely yourself on the internet. I think a lot of other people respect you for it as well. I think that's a big reason why people were drawn to your content in the first place. I think that's a lot of the reason why your employees chose to work with you over anyone else.
Ethan, I think it's respectable that you even began this journey to leave behind the anti-SJW crowd and step into a more empathetic worldview. I know it's not easy.
And now after all of that, look at these fuckers just step right back up on that moral high ground. All of Ethan's biggest critics are about to pretend that they haven't treated him like total dog shit this whole time and position themselves as the bigger people, you know? Fucking cry bullies.
I will be reading my letter off because I don't want to sound robotic. H3 used to be the sports for good that I used to watch. I hope that one day gets back to what I remember. You were one of the inspirations for me to start creating content, so all this has stunk. I hope you really hear this, and I wish you the best.
I think Ethan Klein rocks a buzz cut pretty good, and I think he's got a good choice of facial hair. I think it's really cool what he did 8 years ago, fighting that frivolous lawsuit. That was pretty fucked up, and fighting it, you know, he changed YouTube for the better. And I thought that was cool, because I thought it was like he was fighting for free speech.
They are purely doing this so they can go back to their audiences and tell them, well, you know, I tried to be the bigger person. I said nice things about him in the end. It's a shame H3 is just so crazy and irrationally angry for no reason at us. He's obsessed with us. He needs to move on from us. Fucking manipulative cowards, all of them.
You know, I also see the dynamic of Ethan and Eli. Like, fuck, like, it's really hard to be, a couple online and see people attacking your partner, and it's like, okay, like if you come to their defense, if that doesn't always help them.
right. Sometimes that makes it worse for them.
A lot of people have been clowning Ian for crying at the very end of this whole content cop. I actually do feel for him because I believe he is lost. Deep down inside of Idubbbz, I think there is a wildly creative, very smart, interesting guy with a lot of potential still left in the tank. I think he's more than capable of still being a great YouTuber. Sadly, he just never had a solid holding on his own self-confidence. He has no backbone. He has let other people walk all over him for years. And I think it's a tragedy that one of the more special YouTubers out there has fallen so hard, so far from grace. I hope he finds it in him to one day think for himself again. I was never particularly a hardcore Idubbbz fan ever, but I used to have a lot of respect for him, and it's genuinely sad to see this.